Bright Tuty. Every student matters.
Hello, my dear children. Today we will be taking up this chapter, A Different Kind of School. What idea you get from this? What does it mean, a different kind of school? We all go to school. We all know how schools are. So what do you think? What different kind of school it would be? Does it, what idea you get? Does it have some kind of different activities, some different kind of teachers, or some different kind of students, or the school building is of some different kind? What do you think? What different kind of a school it would be? Let's read the chapter. But before we read, we'll read what the chapter is all about.
Let us read this. Do you know these words? If you don't, find out their meanings. The first word is bandage. What does bandage means? Bandage is a strip of woven material used to bind up a wound. I have mentioned it here. Bandage is a strip of woven material used to bind up a wound. We all must have seen whenever we get some injury, when we go to a doctor, he always covers the injury with a white strip. That strip is called a bandage. Next is crutch. Crutch is a long stick with a crosspiece at top used as support under the armpit by a person with an injury or a disability. We all must have seen, it's a very long stick which is used to hold like this or keep the armpit like this, and when we walk, a person with an injury or a disability, when he walks, the crutch is used for that purpose to support. Next is cripple. Cripple is cause severe disability. Any person who has a severe disability in the body, that person is called a cripple. Next, honor. Honor means respect. This I have not written because it's a very common word. We all must be knowing about it. Honor means immense respect. Misfortune. Misfortune is again a very common word. Misfortune means bad luck, not good luck. System. What does system means? System means a set of things working together as part of a mechanism. Anything, a set of some few things which are working together. That whole setup is called a system. Look at the pictures in this unit and guess in what way this school may be different from other schools. We'll start the chapter. The name of the chapter is A Different Kind of School. What do we see here in this picture? There is this boy and there is this girl who has a blindfold on her eyes. Can you depict what this picture is trying to say? Okay, let's read. I had heard a great deal about Miss Beam's school, but not till last week did the chance come to visit it. So the writer is saying, I had heard a great deal. Great deal means I have heard a lot. I have heard a lot about Miss Beam's school. He had already heard a lot of things about Miss Beam's school, but not till last week did get the chance come to visit it. He did not get the chance to visit the school for a very long time, but last week he got the chance, he got the opportunity to visit the school. When I arrived, there was no one in sight, but a girl of about 12. What does in sight means? To be seen. When he arrived in the school, he could not see anybody, but just a girl who was almost 12 years of age. Her eyes were covered with a bandage, and she was being led carefully between the flower beds by a little boy who was about 4 years younger. So when the author entered the school, arrived at the school, what did he see? He could not see anybody but a girl who was around 12 years of age. That girl had a bandage on her eyes. She was blindfolded. She had a bandage all around her eyes, and she was being led very carefully. She was supported and given the direction by a very small boy who was around 4 years younger to her, and they were walking carefully in between the flower beds. So that young boy who was around 4 years younger to her, he was helping her walk in between the flower beds. She stopped and it looked like she asked him who had come. She suddenly stopped and it seemed to the author that she asked the little boy who had come. He seemed to be describing me to her. Then they passed on. So it looked like that young boy who was accompanying her, supporting and helping her, who was leading her, he was explaining about the looks and he was trying to explain who has entered and how that person was looking. And after that, they passed on. Miss Beam was all that I had expected. Middle-aged, full of authority, yet kindly and understanding. So this is the character sketch of Miss Beam. Character sketch means how the character was, how the person or the personality of that particular person was. So Miss Beam was middle-aged, full of authority. That means she had full control over whatever was happening in the school. Full of authority, she was aware, very aware and alert of her surroundings and whatever was happening in the vicinity of hers. Yet kindly and understanding. Even she was full of authority, she was not rude. She was very kind and understanding. She was compassionate and considerate. Her hair was beginning to turn grey. She has whitish greyish hair because she was middle-aged, so this is one obvious sign. And she had the kind of plump figure that is likely to be comforting to a homesick child. She looked very motherly. Why? Because she had the kind of plump figure, as in she looked very motherly. She looked like a mother to a child who is homesick, who wanted to go home and hug his or her mother. So that lady, Miss Beam, she looked like that. She gave that kind of aura, or she had that kind of look which was very motherly. I asked her some questions about her teaching methods, which I had heard very simple. So after seeing Miss Beam, the author had already expected her to be like this, and she was like the same. So once he met Miss Beam, he asked her some questions about her teaching methods. Since he had already heard a lot about Miss Beam's school, so when he got the chance of meeting her personally, he asked some questions about the teaching methods, which I had heard were simple. He had heard that those teaching methods were simple, so he asked some questions about it. No more than is needed to help them to learn how to do things. Simple spelling, adding, subtracting, multiplying and writing. The rest is done by reading to them and interesting talks, during which they have to sit still and keep their hands quiet. They are practically no other lessons. So this school was different from the other schools. How was it different? No more than is needed to help them to learn how to do things. Simple spelling, adding, subtracting, multiplying and writing. They were being taught about simple spelling, adding, subtracting, multiplying and writing. This is done in every school, but along with it, whatever is taught there, that is done by reading to them and by interesting talks. Whatever was taught in the school, except for few things like simple spellings, adding, subtracting, multiplying and writing, the rest of the other things were done by reading to them and by interesting talks. Interesting talks as in telling stories, making a gameplay, making a role play, doing it with a role play, learning it with some creative talks. That is what interesting talks means. So everything except for these things which have been mentioned above, everything else was done by reading and with interesting talks. During which, when this happens, reading or the interesting talks happens in the class, during that time, they have to keep their hands quiet and they have to sit still. They have to be motionless. They have to sit still and quietly, and they have to keep their hands still and to them. There are practically no other lessons. No conventional teaching is there in this school. No other lessons except for the above which have been mentioned, and they are being taught about how to help others by reading and interesting talks. Now, this is the important line. The real aim of the school is not so much to teach thought as to teach thoughtfulness, kindness to others, and being responsible citizens. Now, what was the real aim of the school? The real aim of the school was not to think, but to think about others, to think about everything and everybody, not only about themselves. The real aim of the school is not so much to teach thought as to teach thoughtfulness. Thoughtfulness means being considerate, being compassionate about people and everything around you. Kindness to others. They were being taught kindness, how you can be helpful to others, and being responsible citizens, how you can be civil and live in a civil manner in a society, and being responsible citizens of your country. Look out of the window a minute, will you? So Miss Beam asked him, can you please look out of the window? I went to the window which overlooked a large garden and a playground at the back. So the author, he looked out of the window, and what did he see? He saw a large garden and a playground at the back. What do you see? Miss Bean asked. I see some very beautiful grounds, I said, and a lot of jolly children. So the author explained that he see beautiful grounds, grounds as in fields, or you can say park or a playground. So the author said, I see some beautiful grounds and a lot of jolly children. What does jolly means? Happy. Lot of jolly children. It pains me though to see that they are not all so healthy and active looking. He said, however, I see jolly children, but it still pains me, it hurts me, I don't feel good about it. About what? To see that they are not also healthy. That he saw that all the kids who were playing outside, they were not also healthy. Some kind of damage or disability was seen in them, and they were not very active looking. When I came in, I saw one poor little girl being led about. He said, when I had entered the school, I saw a poor little girl who was being led about by a young boy. She has some trouble with her eyes. He said, I found out that she had some trouble in her eyes because she had bandage on her eyes, Now I can see two more with the same difficulty. Now I can see two more kids with the same kind of disability or difficulty. And there's a girl with a crutch watching the others at play. And he could see that there was another girl who had a crutch in her hand. I had just explained the meaning of crutch when we started the chapter. Crutch means a stick which is used by a person with some kind of disability to support that person. A stick where you put your arm like this. So he saw a girl who was with a crutch, and she was watching the others who were playing because she could not play. She had this kind of difficulty or disability in her body that she could not play. She seems to be hopeless cripple. It looked like that she was a hopeless cripple. Cripple means, I had explained earlier, severe damage or difficulty, and hopeless means without any hope. It looked to the author that she was a hopeless cripple. She did not have any hope. She had such kind of difficulty in her body that she did not know what to do. She was so hopeless about it. Miss Beam laughed. "Oh no," she said, "she's not really lame." Mrs. Bean said, "Oh no," she laughed and she said, "Oh no, she is not really lame." Lame means you can say crippled, or with or somebody with some kind of disability. It can be minor or major. So Miss Beam laughed and she said, "Oh no," she said, "she is not really lame. This is only her lame day." What is lame day? Day on which she acts as if she was lame. So she had to, lame day means any day which has been assigned to a particular person to act like lame. So it was her lame day. She had to act like it. The others are not blind either. It is only their blind day. Then she told the others who are wearing a bandage on their eyes, they are not blind. It is just their blind day. So what is blind day? Blind day is a day on which the kids have to act like blinds. I must have looked very surprised, for she laughed again. And of course the author was so shocked and surprised to hear such kind of revelation from Miss Beam, and Miss Beam laughed again, seeing his facial expressions. This is a very important part of our system, to make our children appreciate and understand misfortune. We make them share in misfortune too. Miss Beam explained to him that this kind of you can say role play is very important part of their schooling or teaching system. Why? Because children must learn how to appreciate and understand misfortune. Misfortune as in bad luck. I had told you earlier also, the meaning of misfortune is bad luck. So the school wanted to teach the kids kindness, compassion. They wanted the kids to understand the kind of problems or the kind of difficulties other people who are not very fortunate they face in everyday life. So how do they do that? They make them share in misfortune too. They do this role play so that they have to behave exactly like the same person who is having that kind of difficulty or disability, and they have to behave like that, so that they can understand what kind of pain or what kind of difficulties that person face. Each term, every child has one blind day, one lame day, one deaf day, one injured day, and one dumb day. So this was their curriculum, where in each term, every child has one blind day where they have to pretend or act as if they are blind, one lame day where they have to pretend that they are lame or they are crippled, one deaf day where they have to pretend that they are deaf, they cannot hear, one injured day as in they are injured, they have some kind of severe injury, and one dumb day where they cannot understand or speak. What do you think would be the most difficult if we have to do this role play? I think for me, it would be deaf day. It is so difficult to pretend deaf when there are people around and they're talking to us. We have to ignore them. We do not have to listen to them and pretend as if we are deaf. It is so difficult to do. Okay, So coming to the next lines. During the blind day, their eyes are bandaged absolutely and they are on their honor not to peep. So when they have to pretend as if they're blind, what is done? The eyes are bandaged absolutely. Complete eyes are bandaged. Complete. The whole eyes are bandaged. And they are on their honor not to peep. And it is about their respect that they should not peep. They should not cheat. The bandage is put on overnight, so they wake blind. They sleep with the bandage on, so that when they wake up blind. So that they don't see where they're waking up, how they're waking up, in what condition, in what situations. This means that they need help with everything. And what does that mean? If they are sleeping and waking up with the bandage, this means that they need help with everything. Other children are given the duty of helping them. So other children who are the friends or the colleagues or the other children of the class, they are given the duty of helping the person who is pretending to be blind and leading them about. For the whole day, they have to lead them about in the whole campus. They all learn so much this way, both the blind and the helpers. This way, the person who is pretending to be blind and the person who is helping, they both learn too much. It is a mutual learning for both kind of characters the kids are playing. The one who is blind, he understands the kind of feeling or pain the blind person goes through or difficulty the blind person goes through. And the helpers, they understand how difficult it is for a blind person to, do his daily chores, and they understand that we should be helping the blind people on every step of our lives. There is no misery about it. Misery as in unpleasantness or difficulty. So she says, there is no misery. It is not for pain. It is for learning. So there is no unhappiness, you can say, or the kids are happy doing it. They are not doing it just for the sake of doing, or they are not happy, they are sad about it. No, the kids are happy doing it. So because they know that this is for their learning. There is no misery about it. Miss Beam continued. Everyone is very kind and it is really something of a game. So she says, it is such a sport that every kid, something of a game means such a sport that every kid enjoys it. Every kid enjoys doing it, participates with all the enthusiasm. Pretends, whatever the pretend play, the role play they have to do, they do it with all the enthusiasm, all the energy. Before the day is over, though, even the most thoughtless child realizes misfortune is. Miss Beam says, even before the day is over, and when the pretend play the role play is going on, even the thoughtless child, thoughtless as in careless, any child who is not very bothered about his surroundings or his peers or his friends, group, colleagues, even that child understands what misfortune is, what bad luck is, because that particular child also has to go through the role play. So he or she understands how misfortune is.
The blind day is, of course, really the worst. But some of the children tell me that the dumb day is the most difficult. So now Miss Beam is telling that the blind day actually is the most difficult. It's really the worst when they are role playing the blind day. But some children, they tell her that the dumb day is the most difficult. It is very difficult to stay dumb, enact dumb. We cannot bandage the children's mouths, so they really have to exercise their willpower. She says that we cannot, it is practically not possible to bandage children's mouths. So it is up to them how they practice, how they show their willpower to pretend dumb, right? What is the meaning of willpower? Willpower means the strength of the mind, how much determined you are to do something, right? So it is up to the children how they show or portray their willpower to do that particular task. Come into the garden and see for yourself how the children feel about it. So Miss Beam, she tells the person that you come in the garden and see for yourself how the children are feeling about it now that they're playing dumb. So you please come and see for yourself.
Miss Beam led me to one of the bandaged girls. Here's a gentleman come to talk to you, said Miss Beam, and left us. So Miss Beam led the author to one of the bandaged girls as in a girl who had bandage all over her eyes, and she was doing the role play of being the blind. So Miss Beam led the author to that bandaged girl. Here's a gentleman who's come to talk to you. She explained that here's a gentleman who wanted to speak to that girl, said Miss Beam, and left us. Us as in both of them, the author and the girl. Don't you ever peep? I asked the girl. The author was so curious, so he asked the girl, don't you ever peep? Don't you try to cheat? Just, putting up the bandage and just peeping like this? Oh no, she exclaimed. That would be cheating. But I had no idea it was so awful to be blind. You can't see a thing. You feel you're going to be hit by something every moment. It's such a relief just to sit down. So that little girl said, oh no, I don't peep because that would be cheating. But then she told that I had no idea that it is so awful to be blind. She felt so difficult playing the blind person because she felt that of course she couldn't see a thing, and she felt as if she's just gonna hit into something every moment. She says it is such a relief just to sit down because of course you don't know where to go, how to move, how to walk. So it is such a relief she felt when you are sitting down. Are your helpers kind to you? I asked. The author asked, are your helpers, the kids who have been given the duty to help her, are they kind to you? Fairly, but they are not as careful as I shall be when it is my turn. The girl said, fairly, not too much, they're not too kind, but fair enough, they are fairly kind to me, but they are not as careful as when I would get the turn then I would be. So she compared herself to the other people, other kids, and she said that probably I would have been more careful, or when my turn will come, I would be more careful with the other who are playing the blind role. Those that have been blind already are the best helpers. So the kids who have already done the blind play or they have already had the blind day, they are the best helpers. Why are they best helpers? Because they have already experienced how is it to be blind. They know the difficulties, so they are the best helpers. It's perfectly ghastly not to see. I wish you would try. She's saying it is such a difficulty not to see. It is such a difficult or unimaginable situation just not to see. I wish you would try. So she says, I wish that you would try doing the blind day, playing the blind role. Shall I lead you anywhere? I asked. So the author asked her, shall I lead you anywhere? Oh yes, she said. Let's go for a little walk. So she wanted to go for a little walk. So she asked the author, oh yes, let's go for a little walk. Only you must tell me about things, and you have to tell me and describe me about all the things which will be surrounding us when we will be walking. I shall be so glad when today is over. The girl is saying that I'll be so glad when the day today will be over, because her blind day will be over and she will be relieved. She's so sick and tired and in such a difficulty playing the blind role. The other bad days can't be half as bad as this. So she says the other days like lame day or deaf day or dumb day, they cannot be as difficult or as bad as this one. she finds the blind day most difficult. Having a leg tied up and hopping about on a crutch is almost fun, I guess. She is imagining how is it to play the role of a crippled person who has to, hop on a crutch. So she is guessing that probably it would be fun having your leg tied up. It won't be that difficult. Having an arm tied up is a bit more troublesome because you can't eat without help and things like that. And then she imagines having the arm tied up. Because it is troublesome, she says it would be troublesome because you cannot eat without any help or probably do any kind of chores. You use your hand everywhere. So you need help for everything when your hand is tied up. But still, I don't think I'll mind being deaf for a day, at least not much. She says probably deaf day would be okay. She won't mind playing the deaf role. Why? Because she might be tired of listening to this stuff here and there and she has to ignore the kids around her. But being blind is so frightening. My head aches all the time just from worrying that I'll get hurt. So she is saying being blind is so frightening, is so fearful, so dangerous she feels. My head aches. She says my head has trouble. I have pain in my head just thinking or just worrying that I'll get hurt. Next moment I'll just go and hit something. So she is, worried about it. So she is saying my head aches because of this worry. Where are we now? So because they're taking a walk, she asks the author, where are we now? In the playground, I said. We are walking towards the house. So this is the author and this is the blind girl. So he is explaining in the playground. We are in the playground. We are walking towards the house. Miss Beam is walking up and down the garden with a tall girl. So he explains that Miss Beam is walking in the garden up and down with a tall girl. So she is imagining the tall girl and she's just, imagining in her mind. What is the tall girl wearing? My little friend asked. So that girl, she asked the author, what is the girl wearing? A blue cotton skirt and a pink blouse. So the author explains, he describes the kind of clothes she was wearing, the color of the clothes she was wearing, the tall girl. I think it's Millie, she said. She's just thinking that it could be Millie. Then she confirms. And how did she confirm? She asked another question. What color is her hair? Very light, I said. So the author answered her, very light. Yes, that's Millie. She is the head girl. So now it got confirmed to this bandaged girl that tall girl who was taking rounds with Miss Beam, she was Millie and she is the head girl of the school. There's an old man tying up roses, I said. So when they walked further, the author explained to her that I can see an old man who was sitting and tying up the roses. Yes, that's Peter. He's the gardener. He's hundreds of years old. So the bandaged girl said, yes, that's Peter. He's the gardener here of the school. And he's hundreds of years old. Is that possible? She's just imagined probably some of the stories that kids make that old person is around hundreds of years old. So she said he's hundreds of years old. And here comes a girl with curly red hair. She is on crutches. So when they walked further, the author again explained to her that here comes a girl. There's a girl I can see who has curly red hair and she has crutches on. That's Anita, she said. She imagined in her brain and she imagined a girl who was on crutches and then she got the answer that it was Anita. And so we walked on. Gradually, I discovered that I was 10 times more thoughtful than I ever thought I could be. So they kept on walking and walking, and gradually means slowly or eventually. I discovered, the author discovered as in to get to know, to realize. So he realized that he was 10 times more thoughtful than he ever thought he could be. He thought, he understood, he realized that he became 10 times more thoughtful than he could ever be. I also realized that if I had to describe people and things to someone else, it made them more interesting to me. And he also realized if he had to describe or explain something or somebody to someone else, that things become more interesting to him. That whole conversation or that particular thing or that particular person becomes more interesting to him. So, these are the last lines. When I finally had to leave, I told Miss Beam that I was very sorry to go. So he did not want to go, but then when he had to leave, he told Miss Beam that I was very sorry to go. He just did not want to leave. So he said sorry. Ah, she replied, then there is something in my system after all. And then Miss Beam said, no problem, I have other visitors as well. And something or the other is happening in my system as well. The story was written by E.V. Lucas. E.V. Lucas is the author of the story.